Hello and welcome to On the Button. In this episode, we speak to Mike Bainbridge, who's innovation lead at Amazon Web Services. I've been lucky enough to work with Mike for a number of years, and so it was great to catch up and talk about how he's allowing their customers to use innovation the same way that Amazon are all over the world. How AI is playing an important part in everything that they do now, and obviously how he's used and is now using video in his role at AWS. So Mike, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. We've worked together for a long time, but for much of the audience, they might not know who you are. So it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself, tell me who you are and where you work.
Yes, thanks, Simon. Good to see you again. My name is Mike Bainbridge. I run the Customer Innovation Programs team at Amazon Web Services. And for your audience who don't know, AWS is a subsidiary of Amazon that provides on-demand, reliable and scalable cloud computing services. And my team helps our customers innovate like Amazon. We're very lucky to have a reputation for building products and services that our customers love. And innovation is such a hot topic in business right now. It seems that everyone wants to learn how to do it more effectively. And we try to be quite humble when we do this. This is the approach that works for us at Amazon, and we're happy to share that.
Yeah, I guess one thing that Amazon are known for is innovation, right? I mean, moving from selling books, and I heard a really interesting story that the reason that Jeff decided, I call him Jeff, like I know him, decided to sell books first was because it's non-perishable products that are easy to store and ship, and the kind of story behind that was really interesting. It wasn't just because he liked books. And so I guess the innovation has grown from there. So tell me a little bit more about the work that you do in innovation.
Yeah, well, first of all, my team is quite small, and as I said before, innovation is this hot topic that there is a lot of demand. So we really have to pick the battles, if you like, which customers we're going to work with. So the program is all about helping customers how they can explore new ways of working, challenge their own internal approaches, and then really go on that journey to getting products in the hands of customers really quickly. When people talk about innovation, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what it actually means. So I break it down into three things, as if you like, to keep it simple. So first of all, you're solving a problem on behalf of your customers. And those could be internal customers, so a business process, for example, or an external customer, a supplier, a consumer. The second thing that you do is you find a new or a different way of solving that problem. So you're doing something different. And then the third thing is you get that product or service or solution or whatever it is into the hands of the customer. So it's not just about coming up with great ideas. Innovation, and this really is the key, is about that implementation and that successful delivery.
So I guess you, like you say, you must have a huge queue of people waiting to work with you. And I've seen that some of those workshops in action, and it's amazing to watch, because I guess sometimes people just don't. Sometimes it seems like solutions can be quite obvious. It just needs someone there to help them and spend that time to think maybe a little bit differently. And it's been amazing to be able to experience that firsthand. And I think hopefully our business has benefited from seeing the way that you guys work over at Amazon as well. Now, obviously, I've said I worked with you for a while, and we've always worked with you producing video content. Be interesting to hear how you think video plays a part in this kind of innovation process, why it's useful, and how AWS are using video.
Particularly in my team, we find it's really important to tell customer stories for two main reasons. The first reason is so that our customers can understand what we do. Hearing firsthand from someone the experience they've had, the benefits of working with us, and then the impact that engagement had is so powerful. And secondly, we use it to demonstrate the impact of the program internally to our other teams, to account managers who work directly with our customers, and of course to our leadership. So I ran a session with my team early on, really to think about the biggest benefit that we bring to our organization. One of the things that came out of that, they said, was we really earn trust with our customers by exposing them to the Amazon way, if you like. It demonstrates that we're happy to share exactly how we work, and to lots of people, that's a big deal. The challenge then becomes for us as a team proving that impact. Now, how can you demonstrate that you earn trust with a customer or a stakeholder? So imagine you go on the journey with them, you help them innovate, it solves one of their key problems. They start to, hopefully use some of our cloud and technology services to deliver those products and services to their customers. But to me, the ultimate demonstration of trust is that they're willing to go on camera and talk about that journey and share with you and effectively anyone else who sees that video exactly what they did. And like you know what it's like. It's difficult to get people to agree to do it sometimes. There really has to be a compelling event. There has to be an outcome. Otherwise, it's the story without the happy ending. If the innovation approach was, oh, we learned how Amazon did it and we came up with a load of great ideas, it doesn't really show that impact. There really has to be a happy ending where we launched the solution and now our customers use it and they loved it and it's changed the approach for us.
I guess, yeah, that's a story has to have a beginning, middle, and an end. If there's no end, it kind of leaves the audience hanging, and that's not really a proper story. I've certainly seen that, in the stories we've been telling with you guys. I think the other side of it, though, is that the process of filming also helps reveal quite interesting aspects that maybe weren't obvious during the project itself. We find that with all of our clients. We probably get to delve a little bit deeper. We get to ask questions that you don't necessarily get to ask in a regular business meeting. Do you think that's the case?
Yes, definitely. I think when the camera's rolling, it often forces people to think slightly differently. I mean, we're now in this world where, thanks to the smartphone and the rise in social platforms, especially, TikTok, and then the other parts that have been copied, like Reels and Instagram and things like that, we're getting much more familiar with video. I really think it's become a lot more engaging than reading blog posts or press releases, because the difference is, in the written form, you've often been edited or you've often paraphrased what the person has said. When you get them speaking on camera, it comes across as a lot more genuine. And to the point you made about hearing different angles and different perspectives, being in that situation, that interview situation, I think puts people on the spot a little bit. And sometimes that spontaneity enables them to talk openly and just like you say, reveals things about the process that if they really sat down to think about it, then they might think too hard.
I do think it's useful having a third party asking the questions. I can ask, honest, genuine questions about what it's like working with AWS and what's that process like, and what were the best bits, and what were the bits that maybe you could do differently next time, or whatever it might be. And people seem to open up to us in a way that surprises our clients sometimes. So sometimes it might be that some of the footage actually is useful. We transcribe a lot of the content we shoot outside of the films that we're making, just for giving our clients that insight into how our customers feeling about the process. I mean, you talked about the process there. and hopefully the agencies that you work with will make that process easy. But what would you say is the hardest part of making a great film with your clients?
Well, like just going back to that point I was talking about before, because the barrier is so low now, because we all carry around a smartphone, which, is effectively a high definition video camera and an editing suite in our pockets wherever we go, you almost assume that it's too easy. The barriers are non-existent to creating video content. I mean, if you go back 20 years, you had those big cameras that people used to put on their shoulder and all the lights and things, and actually filming a video was a huge investment of time and money. I feel like the biggest challenge today is people think, oh, it's kind of easy because I can easily shoot a video at my friend's birthday party and add some text to it and add some special effects, and then I've got that great 10-second video for my social media platform. Actually, when you're shooting a video to tell a customer story as part of your organization and part of business, there are a lot of other things that you have to do that working with an agency helps with. And one of the things I've learned is really about that storytelling element to it. What does the story look like that you're trying to tell? How do you ask the right questions to get the right parts of the story for the audience, so that the people you interview take the people who are going to watch the video on that journey? And I think planning out the story is really important. What the problem was, how you solved it, what the challenges were along the way, and then what the impact and the end result have been. It's really important to do that planning in advance and to really think about that. The amount of work as well that it takes to get to that point, I think is often misunderstood, often sometimes forgotten about. In innovation engagements with customers, it can be really hard, because solving those critical problems that they have, or learning to engage their customers in a new way, can be really challenging. So our engagements with customers who work with us as part of the innovation program can often be 3 months or more long, right? Those programs and projects we run with them take a long time, and summarizing all of that into 3 minutes is kind of hard as well, particularly when you have all that content. So not just the planning of the story, but also finding the great bits and editing it down to something that's really, really well delivered. No one's going to sit through a 25-minute video, right? Like a Netflix episode. You need to have punchy content that tells a story really well in sort of under 3 minutes, I think. I think that's the attention span you have for most people. And that's the second thing that the agency will bring. That experience of picking out the key story points and providing meaningful video to fill up that time is key.
You said some really interesting things there about the process. I thought it was interesting. I was quite surprised to hear, not everyone is as enlightened as you, in that understanding that it's not just about technology. It's not just about getting out the latest smartphone and filming what you see. It's about all the preparation that goes in at the back end, meeting the people that you're going to be filming beforehand, managing their expectations about the process, and having a good plan on location so that you can kind of you can speak to those contributors and relax those contributors and get what you need from them in a less than direct way. It's not just about reading out a series of questions. It's about having a conversation with them. And then obviously the most important part after that is, the edit, and handing it over to a team that you can trust, that will bring that story to life in a way that was even better than you imagined when you shot it, and fixing any of those things in post that maybe were missed on location, all those little bits. And that brings me to a really interesting part that's like very linked to AWS and the work you're doing there, and that's around AI. We're using AI in significant ways now at Big Button, and it would be good to get your thoughts about how you think AI is going to change the landscape for you and the work that you're doing.
Well, it's such a big topic at the moment. Where do I start? So, look, I think the biggest the biggest challenge with AI at the moment is that it's often so misunderstood because we're using technology, machine learning, uh, automation, all these things that make up, if you like, the AI suite to improve workflow and make us more efficient and all those great benefits that we see. They're really just tools. And the biggest problem that most organizations have when they say, right, we have to do something with AI, we need to start using AI, is they start with the tool. And it's the classic analogy then, right? So if you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You think the solution to everything is to hit it. I'm sure everyone has heard that analogy before. The key, and we see the same in innovation as well, is actually start with a problem, and perhaps you'll find an AI tool or something that will be able to help you, and you can use AI along the way. Because there are so many options now, that would probably be the case. But I think the challenge comes for most companies where they start with the tool and then they're sort of already going down that AI route and they build a product or a service and they've used all this great technology and we've got the AI thing, but then they get to the end and they realize actually it's not solving a problem for anyone. We've built this tool that isn't relevant to our environment. So what's really important for us when we engage our customers and how, I suppose, the impact that AI is having as part of our program is almost to slow people down and pull them back and say, like wait a sec. The most important part is to really understand your customers deeply, put yourself in their shoes, understand their problems, their challenges, their issues. And then when you find that key problem or issue, fall in love with that problem, really explore it, investigate it, and do your research, take time. And then, once you really know what the problem is and it's really clear and you can kind of start to think of what the benefits are going to be when you solve that problem, then you can spend all the time using those great technology solutions to build the product or the service or the application, whatever it is that's going to deliver that problem. It's one of those things. It's human nature. It happens to everyone. I feel we're all problem solvers. When we hear a problem, we would just want to dive in and start with the solution. Actually, reining yourself back and slowing things down is probably the most important thing. So, for us and in my team as well, we don't position AI as something that our customers should use. What we position is the innovation approach. Like I said before, focus on your customer, understand the problem, and AI will probably fit in there somewhere, but don't rush it. And I think that's really the most important thing. So often, you hear people jump in and they get excited about the solution and about the power of all these tools, that they fail to think about actually what problem they're solving. And that's really the most important difference for us.
Absolutely. I think where we're using those AI tools, it's really to help us with pain points. So issues that we're having when we're trying to solve those issues, maybe in terms of speeding up workflow for clients or whatever it might be, or just innovating. So coming up with better creative and using AI to help enhance that. At the moment, it's mainly enhancing, although we're now talking to clients with just starting on a project where we're going to be essentially replacing contributors with avatars that look real and allowing us to create regular content without necessarily having to bother those contributors on a regular basis. And for that kind of thing, I think it's going to be very useful if you're giving, especially finance, for example, giving regular updates. I think my where we're taking it slowly as you've just suggested is really because I'm worried about losing that authenticity that you get when you're talking to real humans, and all the little errors and mistakes that they make. That's all part of that important story, and getting to know those people and trusting what they're telling you. And so I think using AI, well, at least at this stage, in 10 years' time, I'm sure it's going to be very different. You won't be able to tell the difference. AI will be making all those same mistakes that we do. But at the moment, I just feel it's going to lose that personality, and so we're taking it slowly as well. In terms of the future, then for you, and I'm sure AI will continue to play a part of it, and all those amazing tools that AWS are offering their clients. But what else is exciting you about the future, and how do you think video might be involved with that?
So this might turn out to be quite a long story, but the biggest challenge that we see at the moment in my program is when customers come to us and they start to talk about wanting to innovate, try new things, solve their critical customer problems, and the challenge for them is about changing the culture. Innovation is really hard. There are a number of issues that make it difficult. Like, firstly, I suppose the time it takes. In many organizations, finding time for people to experiment and try new things is hard. Everyone has a very busy day-to-day schedule. Finding time to take yourself away to really immerse yourself in problems, think big, come up with great solutions is challenging. Secondly, then when you go into that experimental phase, it's again a lot of challenge because I don't know if you know this, by the way, Simon, but we think about experiments in the wrong way, because when we were at school and we first did experiments, like the science experiments, they weren't actually experiments. They were demonstrations. Right? We were following the recipe. The teacher knew what was going to happen. It was about learning for us. But what that means is we think about experiments in the wrong way. We think that they're always successful. And that, I think, is a huge problem. And then the third part of that means when we do fail, it can be a big shock. Naturally, I think people are generally afraid to fail, primarily because of the word. Failure is seen as bad. It has so many negative connotations. So to help customers get comfortable with experimentation, with embracing failure as part of their day-to-day, and freeing up time for something that might effectively not end up in the result you want, needs a complete change in the culture. And look, we've run loads of engagements with our customers, so thousands of different innovation engagements over the last 6 years. And what we're really starting to see is how we can start to change that culture and shift the mindset with organizations. People don't like trying new things or taking risks. We're creatures of habit. There's that, not just a fear of failure, but fear of the unknown too. And what we found from working with our customers is all these challenges, the way you change the culture, that there are three things that you can do when you want to go on this innovative journey. So the first thing you need to do is find a team of leaders within your organization to work on that first innovation project. And when I say leaders, I don't mean the executives or the managers, but those people in your organizations who have that bias for action to try new things, who just take ownership of a problem. Those people, the ones who always do the job, not because someone asks them, because they just realize it's the right thing. Yeah. I think sometimes they're, the busiest people in the organization because everyone just gives them things to do because they know they'll get done. And that we know who those people are in organizations. And and it sometimes reminds me of the Apple advert from years ago, right, where they talked about the crazy ones, the misfits, the ones who don't play by the rules, but those people who get things done and aren't afraid to try new things. So finding the leaders within your organization is the most important part. Then secondly, give them a problem to solve and not a project. One of the biggest mistakes you can do when you start on this innovation journey is, you get this team together, you get everyone excited, and you say, right, we want you to build this new, I don't know, customer engagement platform, or this new CRM service that does this thing for us. When you start like that, when you have a clear definition of a project, that's just project management and delivery. It's not
Mm.
really innovation. You're not solving a problem or doing something new. You already have this expectation of what the outcome will be. And then if it doesn't align to that, you're disappointed. So start with problems and not with projects. And then finally, and the most important thing, and thanks for bearing with me, because this is where it ties back into video, is you have to be able to tell a great story. So when you get to the end of the innovation program, get those people on camera, film them telling their story, because as I'm sure all your listeners know, storytelling is this centuries old, generations old way we have of inspiring each other, of sharing information. And really, we're all leaders. Deep down, we all have that motivation inside us to try new things and experiment. And sometimes we just need to be shown the way. So when you get that great team, you give them an amazing problem to solve, they work through it and they come up with this great outcome, and then you help them tell your story within your organization, they will inspire others. And it's that spark of innovation that really lights the flame in an organization. And when we talk about changing culture, it really can be the hardest thing. Is it, the CEO at the top who says you have to do these things? Well, actually, it's not just about top down. You have to encourage people as well. And to me, it's that storytelling that inspires people. You hear this story about the team who worked on this cool innovation project, and then you say, well, hang on a sec. How can I get to be on the team that does the next one? How can I get to be part of the next group? And before you know it, you have lots of interested people who say, actually, I want to do some of that as well. I want to take, one day a week to work on this new project and try something new and different. And that's how you really start to drive that culture change. And the medium of how you share those stories is really important.
We take a very similar approach. I was very lucky. I attended a course in Buffalo in the States many years ago by CPSB, the Creative Problem Solving Group, and they work with enterprise level organizations around the world doing exactly that, teaching them how to solve problems in interesting, creative, and innovative ways. And so we at Big Button have kind of taken that approach with video. So when I talk to clients about coming up with new ideas, one of the first things I say is that everyone's creative. We're all creative in different ways. Get people in the room that you wouldn't necessarily associate with coming up with ideas for a video. Get people that aren't on the marketing team or seen as creative along, because sometimes that's where the most amazing ideas will come from. They come from places that you really don't expect. If you look in the places you expect, you'll come up with all the same ideas all of the time. And part of that, I guess, is that fail fast culture. And I think fail fast is maybe a positive spin on failure. He talked about failure having this negative reputation. I think the closest I've seen people come to kind of overcoming that is embracing fail fast and seeing it as a positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's, where hopefully you agree with everything I'm saying. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Getting people comfortable with failure, like I said, is really hard. It's not in our nature. It comes with such negative connotations. And there's a lot of cultural aspects of that baked in as well. So I have a team based across the whole of Europe and the Middle East and Africa. So a very diverse group of individuals from different areas. And in some cultures, that fear of failure is much stronger. And it's you know, it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to change about people, but you have to give them that freedom and make them comfortable. And again, like storytelling, sharing stories is the perfect way to do it. And the best thing about this process that I've discovered on our journey together for working for whatever it is, 6 or 7 years together now, is that innovation stories fit within that perfect storytelling template, the hero's journey. I don't know if all your listeners know this, but there are effectively 7 templates that every story goes by. So if you watch a Netflix show or a movie or you read a book, there are almost 7 structures that every story falls into. And the hero's journey is probably one of the most well known, right? The protagonist has their day to day and they have these challenges and issues, and then something changes, there's a disruption, or they try something new, and then they go on this journey, often with a mentor. They learn something new or different, they try and then they fail. And then because of what they've learned, they save the day, they win the race, they blow up the Death Star, whatever it is. And then the moral of the story is their transformation and the impact it has had. That's almost the perfect template from any innovation story that will inspire other people to go along as well. So getting people comfortable with failure by showing them that actually we did fail as part of this approach. Something went wrong and we had to pivot, or something went wrong and we had to do something differently is really the key. And I think the model that I share with my team and we also share with customers is you have to see failure as a learning opportunity. So you know what it's like. When you're successful and everything works out, it's high fives all round, great job everyone, let's go and celebrate and move on to the next thing. When you get it wrong, that's when you take the time to say, like, what did we do wrong here?
Yeah.
How can we make sure it doesn't happen again? What can we do differently next time? And that's often where you have much bigger learning opportunities than just always being successful all the time. Being successful is boring. Learn to fail and get comfortable with it.
I think one of the things we say when we're running creative sessions is to defer judgment, because I think part of that failure, the issue with failure is feeling other people are judging you on that failure. And so an important part of this cultural change is that those people around those that are failing, and ensuring that they understand that failure is on the way to success. So the best ideas for films that I've ever come up with have been driven by a long session where we've come up with lots of bad ideas, essentially failures. And those, though, have fed that positivity and that good idea that we get to at the end. I guess would you say that's a good analogy for the work that you're doing as well?
Yeah, of course. And as part of giving people that comfort, if you like, or that permission to experiment and fail and try new things, another lesson that we've learned is having the right exec sponsorship from the top. Having someone who sets a clear vision and then can move barriers out the way. Unfortunately, the world we live in, often it's a senior leader within the organization who is the person who says, no, actually, this team's okay to just get on with it. So making sure you have senior stakeholder buy-in is another really important part of that approach.
Absolutely. The best content that we make is when there's buy-in throughout the organization, because it allows, firstly, obviously budget, but also hopefully trust, because we were on a shoot last week, and sometimes it's hard for the people on location to really understand, if they're not used to making videos, why we're asking them certain questions or why we're filming at certain angles. And there needs to be trust to allow that agency to get on and do what it is they're doing. I mean, hopefully, they've communicated before the shoot started with a storyboard or an outline or whatever it is, what the end product's going to look like. But the journey to get there sometimes leaves a little bit to the imagination. And so, yeah, trust throughout the organization. And importantly, senior members of the team trusting the people that we're working with within their organization to allow them to get on with it and be creative. Mike, we're running out of time here, but before we finish, it would be great just to hear if you've got any other top tips when it comes to working with agencies or creating video content, and how to really create stuff that stands out and that's innovative, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to sound a bit boring, actually, Simon, and I'm sure most people will know, but have a really clear idea of what success looks like and plan in advance. So set yourself some goals and targets. And again, we've been talking about failure today. It doesn't matter if you miss those, but you have to give yourself something to aim for. So in terms of your video content, like, do you set a target based on like number of views or reviews or, I don't know, whatever that is, set yourself a target so you know what success looks like at the start. The second thing I would say is, if you're experimenting or if you're trying this for the first time, also set some time boundaries around it. One of the things we see in innovation so often is, the planning hasn't been done. You start an experiment, you try something new, and it kind of never ends. So know when to stop as well. So set some boundaries for when you're gonna start and finish. And then finally, the third thing is get comfortable with iteration and improvement as part of that journey. Like, take small steps and move quickly. And I know this sounds like a dreadful cliche that, innovation is a journey and you should start small. But so often if you start small, try something, learn from it, and then change it and do differently next time, that will really drive you forward to success. And the mental model we have at Amazon, something we share with all our customers, is when we launch a new product or service, and this is exactly the same as if you're launching customer advocacy or you're starting to film videos, don't celebrate and when you finish the thing, that's the end. It should be this journey where you aim to iterate and improve. So really think long term when you think about these things. So those would be my top three.
Amazing top tips, and they time beautifully actually with everything that we preach to our clients around setting smart objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. That pretty much everything you just talked about there, and also measuring so that you can and maybe start small with a pilot to test a theory, proof of concept, to see how your audience react to content, and then looking at that and understanding that so you can do better next time. Thank you. That's amazing to hear it from you. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Mike. It's been lovely listening to you, and I'm sure the audience is going to find everything you've said very useful.
Thank you, Simon. Great to see you again.
I hope you found this episode of the podcast useful. If you have, please remember to like and share. On the Button is brought to you by Big Button. Big Button is a strategic video agency. You can find out more about our work at bigbutton.tv. I hope you can join us next time.